Hello all and welcome to the Rails Board meeting. I'm Alex Vancina, President of the Board, and I call this meeting to order on Friday, July 26th at 1 p.m. Emily, would you please call roll?
Micah Keldicott.
Here.
Jean Carroll.
Here.
Jennifer Cutshall.
Here.
Newton Doyle.
Here.
Gwen Gregory.
Here.
Diane Hollister. Here. Jennifer Hovanek.
Here.
Amanda Kowalski.
Here.
Renee Leyva.
Here.
Julie Milledek.
Here.
Emily Porter.
Here.
Alex Vancina.
Here.
Vanessa Villarreal. Karen Boydick.
Here.
Kathleen Yankowski.
Here.
And we have a quorum.
Thanks, Emily. We'll move on to recognition of guests and announcements. Let's start with guests here in Burr Ridge.
Monica Harris, Rails.
Philip Beck Rails.
Emily Feister Rails.
Sharon Swanson Rails.
Mark Hatch Rails.
Dan Box from Rails.
Ola Gronsky Rails.
Ryan Neville, Rails.
Emily, would you please read the names of any guests attending via Zoom?
Yes, we have Mandy Saya from the Illinois State Library and Ian Slaughter.
Very good. We'll move on to public comments. Are there any public comments here in Burr Ridge? Hearing none, are there any public comments from Zoom participants? Emily, did we receive any public comments by email? Thank you. Moving on. Next, we have the oath of office for our newly elected board members. We have 5 members being sworn in today. Jennifer Cutshall, Homewood Public Library. Anupam Goyal, Clarendon Hills Public Library. Amanda Kowalski, Frankfurt Public Library. Emily Porter, Byron Public Library, and Karen Boydick, returning for the Shorewood Troy Public Library. At this time, will the newly elected members please rise and raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that you will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Directors of the Reaching Across Illinois Library System according to the best of your ability. Thank you. Welcome to the Rails Board. Next, we have the election of officers. The proposed slate of officers recommended by the Rails Nominating Committee is as follows. Renee Leyva for President, Gwen Gregory for Vice President, Jean Carroll, Secretary, and Catherine Yankowski, Treasurer. The floor is open for nominations. Are there any other nominations at this time? If there are no other nominations, may I have a motion for the approval of the slate of officers as presented?
Second, Karen.
Diane and Karen, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Congratulations to our new officers. Over to Renee.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Alex. And thank you for your 2 years as president. All right. Okay, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. You will notice the consent agenda includes minutes from our June meeting. It is generally agreed by legal counsel that no one needs to abstain from approving minutes if your fellow board members who were in attendance at those meetings raised no objections to the meetings or to the minutes. Please note that the Rails Board meeting schedule is also included in the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to move any item to the regular agenda for further discussion?
I think we need to move the board's out. This is for a point of clarification about one of the meetings. There's a discrepancy between what it says on the November date. It says the third Friday, but the date is actually the 4th Friday.
So we'll make those changes. May I have a motion and second for the approval of the consent agenda?
So moved, Jennifer.
Second, Julie.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Next up is Sharon Swanson with the financial report. Go for it.
We're we call roll on this because it includes the disbursements.
Oh, thank you.
Jean Carroll. Yes. Jennifer Cutchell.
Yes.
Michael Gold.
Yes.
Glenn Gregory.
Yes.
Diane Hollister. Yes. Jennifer Hobanic.
Yes.
Amanda Kowalski.
Yes.
Renee Leva.
Yes.
Julie Milliback.
Yes.
Emily Porter.
Yes.
Alex Francina.
Yes.
Karen Boyding.
Yes.
Kathy Yanikowski.
Yes.
And Monica Polika.
Yes.
Thank you, Emily.
You vote.
Next up is Sharon Swanson with the financial report.
Thank you so much, Renee. So you will find, I do this every month. I just wanted to start off. You will find the financial reports for the month of June in your packet. These reports include a listing of all of Rails's accounts and investments, as well as a projection of our cash coverage for fiscal year 2025 budgeted expenditures. Behind these reports, you'll find the combined balance sheets or statement of net assets for both the general and our capital projects funds, as well as statements of revenues and expenditures for both of these funds. In addition, the packet includes statements of revenues and expenditures for our delivery operations and local library system automation programs, or LSAP programs, which together make up 45% of our fiscal year 2025 general fund expenditure budget. These are reported both in our monthly reports and in our annual audit reports. I did want to note that these financials are preliminary and unaudited. And since these reports have been generated, we have continued to record additional June expenses that have been paid in late July, and this is due to normal invoicing delays from our vendors. Our annual audits will begin early in August, so we will kick off that process soon. I'm very excited. The June 30th general fund cash and investment balance was approximately $24.5 million. This would fund approximately 20.8 months of budgeted fiscal year 2025 operations, so we have that much coverage. General fund revenues through June were nearly $18.2 million, and these were just over $1,285,000 above budget. This is primarily due to above budget investment income. So as we all know, we've been at historically high interest rates since the Federal Reserve made, I believe, 11 interest rate hikes over a period of a little over a year. These stopped in this past July, but the Federal Reserve has not made any move to lower interest rates since then. So we've stayed at that historically high rate since that point. We had conservatively budgeted interest rates at a combined 3.75% to anticipate consistent decreases in rates that were projected at the time that we finalized the budget. So currently, interest rates for our money market accounts are averaging 5.42%. So we're well above that budgeted rate, which is why this discrepancy between budget and actual. The Federal Reserve is now anticipating only 1/4 percentage point cut, and they're projecting that would be sometime in September. Right now, that could move back. They're being very conservative before they actually cut rates because they want to see sustained improvements in inflation. And the coming fiscal year 2025 budget anticipates a conservative 4.25% average interest rate. And if these current projections hold, we should be well above that budgeted rate for the majority of the fiscal year. So Rails received 2 unbudgeted grants during fiscal year 2024, and through June, Rails has expended all of those awarded funds. These grants were for 2 of the programs that some of you heard about earlier in the board orientation. For the L2 Development and Enhancement Grant, this was a total of $53,611, and also for the World Language Cataloging Grant, which is a total of $45,627. In addition, the eRead Illinois and Find More Illinois programs grew beyond what we anticipated during the fiscal year 2024 budget planning process, which is great news. This resulted in fees for services and materials revenue coming in over budget. And a little item that has appeared since March. So per GASB, which are governmental accounting standards that were implemented during the past 2 years, so an accounting standard that we had to implement, our multi-year leases and IT contracts must be accounted for as assets, since we've essentially purchased the right to use those assets over a period of time. Anytime that we enter into a new arrangement, the present value of the total amount of the payments related to those contracts needs to be capitalized as an asset, recorded as a capital outlay. So there is a proceeds amount that's in revenues, and there is a capital outlay expenditure amount that's in expenses, which completely offset each other. So there's no effect on the bottom line. I did also want to mention that Rails had budgeted conservatively for the full EBSCO purchase in fiscal year 2025, because at the time that the budget was finalized, the statewide database program, the outcome of that was not known. But given that EBSCO was selected as the vendor for that, the actual reimbursement revenues will vary greatly from budget. These don't affect the bottom line because they're just pass-through expenses that are billed back to member libraries at the same amount that we pay EBSCO. So moving on to expenditures, general fund expenditures through June were nearly $16.4 million. And these were $257,509 below budget due to below budget personnel expenditures, the normal recruitment delays in filling several open positions during the year, including the associate executive director position, director of marketing communications position, and several other positions. As Monica alluded to during the orientation process, we had a lot of turnover, and last year was the year to handle all of that. This year is the year to get everyone up to speed with training and work towards those goals. We also had favorable to budget staff health insurance elections. So we had budgeted for everyone selecting more of the higher cost plans, but some folks selected lower cost plans. We also have below budget contractual services expenditures. This is from a less than anticipated need for cataloging membership grants for libraries to join those local library system automation programs. So we budget based on express need, but depending on things that happen during the year, the library may not be able to pursue that in that year. So we did have a couple that were not able to pursue those. So we were under budget. We also had a lower than anticipated fuel recovery surcharge from our delivery outsourcing vendor. We had budgeted $4.25 per gallon, but we were running approximately between $3.74 per gallon and $2.64 per gallon for the entire year. That was at the tax exempt rate. So we were well underneath that amount. We also had a lower than anticipated expenditures for the platforms that the Explore More Illinois and the Find More Illinois programs run on, which was great news. We also had below budget vehicle expenditures. Again, the fuel prices that I mentioned. And of course, this is partially offset. This was alluded to during orientation as well by our aging fleet and how high those repair costs were for that to maintain that fleet. So Rails did order 13 vehicles during fiscal year 2024. Through July, we received 11 of those 13. So we're working towards getting back on that regular replacement schedule. So during the month of June, Rails had, I just wanted to mention this, during the month of June, Rails reclassified 4 purchases from the capital projects fund to the general fund to better comply with our capitalization policy. Our policy is very specific that these purchases be evaluated based on equipment being freestanding, functioning systems or items. And these costs came in barely under the threshold for capitalization, primarily due to vendor discounts and the pricing trend of certain technologies since the pandemic. Believe it or not, certain technologies have decreased in price since that time. So this varied from what we had budgeted and the quotes that we had received before we actually completed the purchases. So it was great news, but did result in these reclassifications. And these moves did contribute to 2 of our budget lines being further above budget than they already were when they were reported in May. So these 2 accounts were supplies, postage categories, supplies, postage, and printing expenditures, as well as buildings and grounds expenditures. So supplies, postage, and printing was already over budget due to a difference. We changed the ordering pattern for the delivery sticky labels. So we were ordering 5 different orders during the year, which resulted in higher cost for releases and shipping. So we moved to a 2 orders per year. So we received the first of those orders in May. So that's why we were already over budget for this item. Of course, reclassifying expenditures for the replacement of our video conferencing equipment and our service center server replacements from that capital projects fund to the general fund resulted in this category being additionally $48,800 above budget. So I believe there were 8 of one item and 4 of the other. So between that, it was barely under that $5,000 individual capitalization threshold. Buildings and grounds was already above budget due to increased lease expenditures because we had semi-recently moved from our old Rockford facility to our new Rockford facility. We budgeted at the level of rent for our old Rockford facility, but it had 2,000 less square feet. So it's those additional square feet that we are paying for. And those additional square feet allow us to park our vehicles indoors to avoid any, we've experienced in the past some catalytic converter theft, so it avoids that risk that we were taking by parking them outdoors. Of course, reclassifying expenditures for the purchase of the security cameras and the network distribution center project from the capital projects fund to the general fund for this specific facility did put us at an additional $5,546 that was charged to buildings repairs and maintenance. And we did have one capital projects fund expenditure in June. Rails paid the remaining $22,255 for the completion of the bathroom renovations at our Coal Valley facility. In total, the project cost $24,443, and with the carpet replacement that we had completed earlier in the fiscal year, we have spent a total of $45,506 of the total budgeted amount of $50,000 for building renovations at that facility. And the building has not had any major renovations since it was originally built, so it was greatly in need. And we're trying to do that on a regular basis with that facility. And that's about all that I have for everyone. Does anyone have any questions? And I'm sorry I waxed long. I know you all have already had a long day.
I actually have a question.
Yes, Karen.
If it takes too long to explain, you could do it in an email maybe, but the contractual services expenditures, it says they were below budget because it was due to less than anticipated need for catalog membership grants.
Yes.
What does that mean? Like, how did you come up with the need and then how did you come up with it?
So they're budgeted based on express needs of the members, those who want to join LSAPs. So Anne gets requests early in the year. She totals those up approximate cost because the LSAPs are busy gathering cost. These grants cover the actual cost to join the LSAPs, not including any joining fees that the LSAPs charge. So these are the costs from their vendors. So the LSAPs gather estimates from their vendors. So Searcy Dynex, Innovative Interfaces, and other ILS systems. And Anne builds an approximate budget based on those costs that she's provided. Of course, some of those projects don't happen due to a variety of factors. So the library may not decide to ultimately pursue LSAP membership.
Okay.
Or initially interested. Their board may decide otherwise.
Okay.
Several factors can happen, or they may have to delay it for a year.
Okay. That I just didn't understand why it wouldn't have happened.
That's a great question, Karen.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Next is reports. It says report from the Rails president. I don't have a report, I just have a statement, obviously after orientation. Let's see. After today's orientation, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the Rails staff for their time and for reminding us of the incredible talent we have within our organization. To the board, please share our progress within your own boards. Let them know we are here to support them whenever needed. All informed boards can drive positive changes. Rails offers so much that capturing it all in one sentence is it's challenging. I encourage you to keep your colleagues up to date on all of our activities and to share their comments and concerns during committee meetings or by emailing Monica or myself if necessary. By understanding the needs of our members, we can more effectively provide the necessary services to all member libraries. I also want to express my deep gratitude to all of our committee volunteers who are not in the board. Their dedication and hard work are instrumental in our continued progress and the impactful changes we aim to achieve. With Rails serving around, I don't want to say the specific number, over 1,200 libraries, 4,000 library facilities across 27,000 square mile area. It takes many to accomplish our daily services. So I often say this to my own staff, and I will share it with you. Every person in an organization plays a vital role, from the person making an early morning delivery to the IT specialist like Ryan. Making sure that everything's connected and that people can join us through video. No matter how many hours they're scheduled, each of them contribute to our success. We can all agree that you are the reason why Rails will always remain a safe haven for knowledge. Even though the Rails board is physically here or connecting by video a few times a month, we see you. And we're very grateful for the work that you're doing. Thank you all again for your commitment and support. Let's have another productive year, and looking forward to see how we can improve the daily work lives of our library members and Rails staff. Thank you again. All right, so the next thing is committee. Okay, the committee reports were part of the packet. Are there any questions about the reports? Ooh, anticipation, I like it. All right, next up is Monica with the Rails report.
Thank you, Renee. Hello to all of you. I just will let you know a little bit about how you'll see this every single month. So you'll see the Rails report start with a direct report from the executive director, and then a general Rails report. And then I'll report on both at the meeting, along with any updates that might have happened in the week since you received this. In this month's report, you'll also have received the consortial reports, which you'll receive quarterly. So 4 times a year, you'll also receive reports that are from the consortia that are represented in the Rails territory by the LSAP support grant. So you can see a little bit more about what they're doing and report on that as well. So you won't see that every month, but you will see it 4 times a year. I did want to just call your attention to a few things in the report just to make sure that they are on your radar. One is related to our statewide e-resource package. It's coming from the Illinois State Library. We've been reporting on this to you every month, but we do want to share that the package contract was finalized with EBSCO. That e-resource package, which Rails has advocated for quite some time, is now going to be available to all Illinois communities without charge. We want to extend our thanks to the Illinois State Library and to Secretary of State Alexi Janulius for making these dreams come true. We're very excited about what this is going to mean for Illinois. Public libraries received a message from Susanna Jones, who's the library program specialist from the Illinois State Library, yesterday with some more instructions about how they can access these databases. Those instructions were separated by the way that people had received databases in the past, but she did point out in her email that 51% of public libraries in Illinois, according to the IPLAR, had no access to electronic resources previous to this report. So this is going to be huge for those libraries as well, and we wanted to highlight that. Instructions for existing and past EBSCO customers are separate from new to EBSCO services, and then they're also asking for information from libraries who do not have a website. They're going to need some additional information and instructions from them. So definitely want to encourage all of our public library members to pay attention to that email and follow up so we can continue to move this process forward. Also wanted to highlight that Tom Stagg, who was a Rails board member who has just left our board, won the Illinois Library Association's Trustee of the Year award. We did submit a letter on his behalf along with his home library and some other folks that wanted to highlight him. So we're very happy for Tom and wanted to share that with all of you. And if you're going to be at ILA at the awards luncheon, come and cheer him on. We are also very excited to note that Rails and some of our Illinois library partners won the Hugh Atkinson Award this year. That was for work that happened with the Interlibrary Cooperation for creating the 2023 Illinois School Library Workers Symposium. Dan, who's back here, was instrumental in making that happen, along with our partners at Heartland, ISLE, the Illinois State Library, and the Illinois Library Association. So all will be honored as a result of that. It was an extremely successful program that is being repeated in 2024. So anyone who's interested in participating in that program in September, take a look at the resources, but very successful, and we're really excited and thankful for that award. Also for school libraries, we've been working with the Partnership for School Libraries on an FAQ for school libraries specifically related to Public Act 103-100 and how they can be compliant with the ban against book bans law. So as a lot of these libraries are heading back into school, they're going to be paying attention to that as they're looking at that compliance issue. And so there is an FAQ that's available. It is currently on the Heartland website, which we also have linked to. They also have a video about how school libraries can go through and make sure that they're filling it out correctly. So we want to encourage you to look at some of those resources. RSA, which is one of the LSAPs that is reporting in your packet, did transition to an Illinois intergovernmental instrumentality as of July 1st, 2024. We have been giving you some of those updates that are related to that ongoing process, which has been in play for some time. They've done a really great job of continuing to move along those steps. And if you're not familiar with the timeline, the next step for this year, this fiscal year, is that RSA will move all of their employees away from being Rails employees to being RSA employees by the end of this fiscal year. So we will continue to update you on that. Take a look at the report that's in here so you can read a little bit more, but we wanted to make sure that you knew and were aware. Also wanted to call your attention to two new networking groups. One is about digital equity, which is very timely. There's a lot of people who are very interested in that piece right now. So if you have staff or if you personally are very interested in this issue, we want to encourage you to look and join. And there's also a brand new affordable programming networking group. You probably also saw Jessica has been out on the road. Jessica Silva, who's our new member engagement specialist, has been really visiting a lot of libraries. And so if libraries are interested in a site visit from Jessica, please get in contact. We would love for her to be able to visit you and hear more about what you're doing in your library. Finally, just wanted to call your attention to a few things that are happening in our delivery team. We've got a brand new vehicle decal project. So we've got 44 new vehicle decals that are going out to our vans. Those are going to come out pretty soon. Installation process is about 1 to 2 hours per vehicle, and we're excited to see those. So as you see them driving into your library, you'll get to see some new decals and see what they look like. And the new Geotab tracking software has also been installed in all Rails fleet vehicles, which allows us to track a vehicle's current location as well as the route driven. So are there any questions about anything that I've reported here to you today or anything else that was in the report? Yes, Monica.
I just have a connection. I recommend highly a new book, and in this young adult book, the author mentions Public Act 103-100, the fight against, or the ban against book bans. It's written by Samira Ahmed, a Chicago author. The book is called This Book Won't Burn.
Ooh.
And it is, it's great. I'm like 3/4 of the way through it. And the story is that a Chicago girl, because of family issues, moves to a small Illinois town that is in the process of, pulling 500 books off the shelf, and her heart just won't take it. And so she starts reading the banned books out loud to the seniors who go to lunch across the street at the park, and kind of rabble rousing. But what she mentions, she's like, how could this happen? I thought our state had a law against this. There was some law that got passed against book bans. And so I thought that was pretty cool. Samira Ahmed, as I said, Chicago author. She lives in Hyde Park. She visited my school as an author visit last year, and we just loved meeting her. So highly recommend her new book. It just came out in June.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Monica. I didn't know that.
Thank you both, Monicas, for making a statement. Next is the report from the State Library. We have Mandy.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. So August is almost here, which means it is almost State Fair time in Springfield, Illinois. And this year, the State Library will have an even larger presence in the Secretary of State's tent that we've had in the past. This year, we've got 14 Illinois authors Illinois Reads authors, which will be featured over the 10 days of the fair. And they're primarily geared towards children grades K through 6. Children and families visiting the tent will have the opportunity to meet the authors and illustrators. We purchased about 1,100 books, so every child will hopefully be able to leave with a signed book. And I can email Emily the full schedule of all the authors and when they're going to be there. So if any of you are in our neck of the woods, you should definitely go check it out. And we'll have Illinois State Library staff there to kind of, make sure the authors have what they need and control the flow of traffic and things like that. We'll also have outreach efforts during the fair this year that are going to be primarily focused on the Talking Book and Braille service. Representatives of the program will be demonstrating how to access the free audiobooks that are available through the program via smartphones and Amazon Alexa and other devices to sort of bring that program, into the 21st century and address the needs of the newer participants in that program. A couple years ago, they expanded the qualifications to include people with learning disabilities and reading disabilities. And so there's a whole new age group that they've had a new influx of younger listeners to that program. So that's really exciting. It's also the time of year when we're reviewing the FY25 literacy grant applications, as well as the system area per capita grant applications. The L2 and cataloging maintenance center applications have been reviewed and no issues were found there. So thank you for all your efforts on that. And the delivery service contract awards and announcements will be processed very soon. And of course, we're also in the midst of outreach, push about the open educational resources to public libraries who are not currently using their e-resources, which you guys covered. So thank you so much for that. And the next phase of our outreach on that will be to school libraries. And finally, the Directors University is coming up next week, and we've got 3 library development staff who will be presenting. We'll be talking about the public library per capita grants, LSTA grants, the IPLAR, and all the things we do here at Library Development. And that's all I have for you today.
Thank you so much, Mandy.
Yeah, no problem.
Now on to new business and board committee assignments. Everyone has a draft list of committees, and as you can see, we have a few openings for board members. So if anyone is interested, they can let us know now, if you want to, or email me or Monica after you have time to look at the changes for each committee. Anyone here interested? Want to put their names out there?
Oh,
Crickets, I hear. All right.
I'd like to be on the advocacy committee. The A committee. If that's okay. The A+ committee as the open seat, if that's okay.
Thank you so much, Aaron.
You are welcome. When do you
Team
meet?
player.
Thursdays.
Every Thursday.
No,
Yes.
Thursday. I only started that sentence.
No,
Every other month on a
I can
Thursday.
email you the tentative schedules as well.
Thank you. That would be very helpful in my,
So the committee kind of decides when they'll meet, so.
Amanda, you had your hand
Yeah,
up.
I happily volunteer for the policy committee.
I would just offer in terms of housekeeping that if you're looking at this sheet and trying to decipher it, so the ones that are highlighted, there's potential to join those committees, but you'll also see where it says open seat, it'll say either 1, which means there's 1 open seat because the charge lists that there's so many 1+, which means at least 1. So if more than 1 person would like to join, they could do that. And then there's on policy committee 2+. So that was one where there's 2.
Renee, I'd be happy to join the Universal Service Committee.
Thank you.
Me too. Does that say there's 2?
Mm-hmm.
Me too, Renee, please, the Universal Service Committee.
There you go. You're making my day. This is a wonderful day. Really? Saoirse? All right.
I'd even do the policy committee, but only because Amanda did it first and I trust her policy judgment.
Gwen is a great chair on that committee. She keeps you all on track.
Catherine, do you have one?
I'd like to stay on the policy committee if there's room.
Yes, uh-huh.
All right. Anyone else? Obviously, you're welcome to just email us, and or just after the meeting. It's really just, we just have to put your name down. You can't change your minds. This is it. If something happens, just let us know, but, Emily will then send, essentially the draft schedule. You might change it as a committee.
I should note that in addition to the committee assignments, we are looking for an ethics officer, a FOIA officer, and an OMA officer. Those are folks that, just make sure that we're all following the rules as we're supposed to. There's not a lot of active meetings or roles that are associated with those, but we do have some people transitioning from those roles.
Julie, do you want to participate in any of the FOIA or OMA?
Or Renee, whatever you want to put me on.
Just made it my Christmas list.
Go ahead.
You're awesome.
Since I have so much experience in FOIA.
You are phenomenal. I didn't get contacted that much, so here. In regards to this role, not the lobby, that's a different story. All right, thank you so much. Again, you're definitely welcome to change your minds, except Julie. I'm joking. All right, let's see. The next thing is election of large member to executive committee. The bylaws state that the executive committee includes an at-large member. And I would like to nominate Jennifer Habenek. Oh man, I'm gonna butcher your name. I do apologize. Habenek for the seat. Unless there's any objection, may I have a motion and second to elect Jennifer H. to the at-large seat of the executive committee?
So moved, Alex.
Second, Karen.
All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries. And so we have the executive director goals for fiscal year 2025. We have a,
Yes, so in your packet, there is a draft list of executive director goals. These goals are based on feedback that was received in the evaluation process that was finished June 2024. So what you see before you are 12 goals. Some of them are returning goals from previous years, and there are some that are new based on feedback that was received from the board. This is for you to discuss. You can approve them as presented. You can add and approve, or you can add discussion, and we can present a new list of draft goals next month. So you have a lot of choices as to how you would like to manage and handle this.
all right. Thank you, Monica. And we move on to,
Or do you want to
no,
have any discussion or?
oh, sorry about
No,
that.
no problem.
Obviously,
I have a question.
go ahead.
So these are great goals. I don't have a question with them. I just don't know how we are going to measure progress against
Can you say the
them. How
last
do you
part
measure
again?
progress against them? So I feel like quarterly targets, maybe this is a step one, multi-step process.
So typically a lot of these goals, because they're linked to our strategic plan, and especially you see the continued progress, they're reported on each month as part of the executive director goals, as part of the evaluation process, which does happen once a year, beginning in April and May. Each goal I list progress, so pull them all together, relate all of the progress, and then the board has the opportunity to write comments and then also rate on a rating scale how they feel those were accomplished. There's not like a SMART goals or data target that's associated with these. We haven't done that here, and some of these, because they're continuing progress, are a bit difficult to do in that direction. So that's how we've done it in the past. It does not mean that this process couldn't change, but that's typically how it's operated.
I appreciate that the second goal, the succession plan, which Renee's experience and his position showed us is so important. And I'm sure all of us have been in situations where you got handed the thing, and wouldn't it have been great if there was a better plan of how to fulfill that. And I know that was on your last year's goal, and oh my gosh, it just takes a while, but I appreciate seeing it
Absolutely.
top and center.
So I move that we accept these goals as presented.
Second,
Jennifer? We have to say Jennifer H or Jennifer C now? Would that be helpful?
Yes. John or Jenny.
That's it. You are Jen and I'm Jenny.
Good.
I have to say Emily P.
No. We've been dealing with this our whole lives.
I was gonna say, the four of us have probably had that experience forever.
We have to do roll call on that one. Alright. The next.
Sorry.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? All right, good. So. I'm gonna mess with this draft later on for next time. Okay, so thank you, Monica. We move on to Sharon with financial report and budget.
I have a slide presentation for this.
I just have a question. When were we returning to the Rails board meeting schedule? Or are we not returning to that at this agenda?
I think that we probably should put it in the new business section. I think you're right, Amanda. Do we want to do that now? Or Sharon, are you okay if we discuss that at the moment? So this is the calendar schedule. So as Catherine pointed out, the one that appeared in your consent agenda, the November date for November 22nd is the proposed date of the meeting. But typically in November, we do it on the third Thursday to avoid the Thanksgiving holiday. It just so happens that there are 5 Fridays in November this year. And so it says that it's the third Friday, but really it's the 4th Friday. So we just want to make sure that everyone understands that November 22nd is the correct day that it was proposed, but that it is not the 3rd, it is the 4th. Is that, okay. So we do need to vote on that in order to make sure that we can establish the calendar schedule for the entire year.
I move that we approve the Rails, the draft of the Rails board meeting calendar for fiscal year 2025.
Second, Monica.
There's no need to do a roll call for this, is there, Emily?
Good.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Good catch. Yes, thank you, Catherine.
Sharon, are you ready?
I am. Let me just share again. Shrink everyone's faces down.
So you can actually see what you're doing.
So I'm going to be doing a financial overview. So we do this every year. We try to time this in July when the new board is seated as a refresher for current board members and is also an introductory for new board members. So I'm going to be covering a few topics in my presentation. So first, I'm going to be covering our financial reports, including the composition of various reports, the funds that we use, tips for reading the reports, some of the specifics of each. And I'll also be covering the budget, including our process, and also giving the board a bird's eye view of the budget and a refresher for those who were already on the board, because this was included in that memo that came with the budget to the board. And I'll also be covering the board's responsibilities regarding fiscal oversight. So before we get into any of that, I did want to discuss the basis of our accounting. So basis of our accounting means the timing of when our revenues and expenditures are recorded and our assets, liabilities, and any fund balances. So there are 3 methods. First is the accrual method. This is used by for-profit businesses. And it is also used by government enterprise funds. So those are government funds that operate like a business, like your friends groups that have book sales and operate as a business, use that full accrual method of accounting. There's also the cash method of accounting. This is for-profit businesses that are privately owned. So this is basically cash in, we recognize revenue, cash out, we pay it an expense, we recognize an expense. And this is mostly used for tax purposes. And then there's the third method of modified accrual accounting, which is what we use as an organization. It combines aspects of both accrual and cash. And one example of this is under modified accrual accounting, we can receive APC grant funds up to 60 days after year end, and we can record those as revenue in the year, in the previous fiscal year, basically. This is used for government funds other than enterprise funds. So, diving into the financial statements, there are two different sets of financial statements, the government-wide statements and the government fund financial statements. So, government-wide statements have a long-term focus of the government as a whole. These include longer-term things that are non-monetary in nature, including the net pension assets, the fixed assets, the anything to do with compensated absences, those types of long-term things that don't necessarily result in immediate financial impact. And then the government fund statements, which you will see on a monthly basis in your reports. These have a shorter term focus, and they're presented, as I said, to the board on a monthly basis. This is what you'll be seeing. You will see both the government-wide and the government fund in the end of year fiscal year audits. So fund types, we have 3 different fund types. 2 are currently active. There's the general fund. This is used to account for all operating expenditures of the organization. And then we have the capital projects fund. These are used to account for any capital assets that we purchase. This fund was established in June of 2015. And it was established with the proceeds from the sales of the Wheeling, Shorewood, East Peoria, and Geneva predecessor system facilities. The board felt at that point in time that since we received these funds from capital assets that were sold, they needed to be recycled into future capital purchases. So they established this fund. It has not been replenished since its initial establishment, this initial transfer. And after the order of the 13 vehicles that we did in fiscal year 2024, and the fiscal year 2025 budgeted purchase of 8 additional vehicles, as well as the building maintenance items for our Burr Ridge facility that were identified in that building assessment that we had done late in fiscal year 2024. These include replacement of the parking lot asphalt, replacement of the precast wall barriers that cover a portion of the building, tuck pointing for the building, stucco replacement, and several other items that need to happen. It would be a good idea for the board to consider replenishing these at some point in the semi-near future. So the projected balance of this fund is $670,000 as of June 2025, if everything that we have budgeted happens at the amounts that we have budgeted. And then we have the third type of fund, the special revenue fund. This has been unused since we received the census grant funds in 2020. This fund is for grants other than our area and per capita grant. Both the specialized cataloging grant and the new award and the award for the maintenance and continued development of L2 were approved after our budget was finalized. As I mentioned in my report, both of these grants were accounted for out of the general fund because they were not approved in time to include them in the separate fund, but technically those grants would be accounted for normally in the special revenue fund. So the next part of my presentation, I'm going to be going through your monthly financial report. So if you could get out or go to the monthly report that was included in your packet, I'm going to be going through that. So I did want to point out after my written report, which is basically a more detailed report of what I deliver verbally to you all on a monthly basis. The first report following that is a listing of all of our cash and investments. And this is required per our fiscal accountability policy to report on that monthly to the board. And it is reviewed by the board, our whole investment portfolio twice a year in August and February. So I will be presenting that to you in August again. And I just wanted to go through, we do have 3 money market accounts. We have our money market accounts with Wintrust, which is under the Hinsdale Bank and Trust Charter. We also have a small money market account with Illinois Funds, and also a small account with PMA Financial Network. The bulk of our funds are kept in that Wintrust money market account. We also have a checking account with Wintrust, and we do regular transfers between the two to maximize our interest income that is earned in our money market account and to adequately fund our checking account so that we can pay everything that's due at that point in time. We also have a series of laddered investments. These include 17 certificates of deposit. It's a total of $4,055,065 that is currently invested in those CDs. And we do have a small number of treasury bonds, a small series. With interest income, they were earning 4%. At the time they were given to us in 2012, it was a bequest from a former library system staff member in her will. So next report is the cash position report. And this, as I alluded to in my monthly report, calculates the cash coverage of budgeted operating expenditures. The board had had a discussion in the past, set a very loose goal of having 18 months coverage in the general fund at any point in time. This cash coverage has ebbed and flowed over the years. I'm specifically thinking of the time during the budget impasse when we got down to 9 months of coverage. So that doesn't happen very often, but do expect this to kind of ebb and flow as we receive APC grant revenues, and then some months when we don't receive any revenues because they come in allotments. So next report in line is the statement of net assets. So this shows the balance of assets, liabilities, and fund balance as of the end of each month. I just wanted to point out some specific accounts. So cash and investments is our largest asset, of course. And the accounts receivable balance is rather high due to the June billings that we do in service of the Electronic Content Consortium that I mentioned in my introduction, and I know was mentioned in other parts of your orientation. So my department does the accounting, at least whole or partially, for the ECC consortium, Electronic Content Consortium, which is an Overdrive consortium, in addition to the accounting that we do for the LSAPs. And we also do all or part of the accounting for the Illinois Library Presents group, which is a group that gets presenters together and has them go around to a series of different libraries and do presentations. It's basically another form of a consortium for resource sharing of CE resources. So the balance of this accounts receivable is made up of those early billings for the ECC group. The major liability on our statement of net assets is the balance of the funds held for consortium's account. And this accounts for that pass-through activity for the Electronic Content Consortium. So they have approximately 125 plus members. And this also accounts for any activity from the Illinois Library Presents group. They have approximately 205 plus members. The report calculates the beginning fund balance plus the current year-to-date income or loss, and that equals our total fund balance at that point in time. So the next report is a statement of revenues and expenditures. And this is for both individual statements for both the general and capital projects funds, because those are our two active funds. So I wanted to go through each column. So the current period actual column is revenues and expenditures for the current month being reported on. The next column is the year-to-date actual column. This is the year-to-date actual revenues and expenditures, including the current period actual in the column before. Year-to-date budget original is the year-to-date budgeted revenues and expenditures. It says original because we are on the original budget that was passed by the board. We have not had any budget revisions. If we had a budget revision, it would say revised. Next column is the year-to-date budget variance original. So this is the variance between year-to-date actual and budget. And then the next column is the total budget, original, total budget for the fiscal year. And then the last column is titled percent total budget remaining original. This is the percentage left to be received or spent of the budget. And as I tell the board every year, the column that I refer to the most, if you're ever trying to match up my reports to the financial reports, is the year-to-date budget variance. That's the column that I refer to the most, and that is what I feel is the most helpful for the board to focus on. Okay, next reports. So we do have, as I alluded to in my monthly report, we do present statements of revenues and expenditures, both for the delivery and the local library system automation programs, because they do make up 45% of our total expenditures that we budget for. So two largest subfunds within the general fund, and just a graph demonstrating what a large percentage they are of our total budget. So delivery individually is 31% in fiscal year 2025 of the budgeted general fund expenditures, and LSAP support is 14% of those total budgeted expenditures for fiscal year 2025. So next, separate report is the monthly disbursement listing that you also have that's part of your consent agenda. So this includes two reports, an alphabetical listing of all payments made during the month. And we do a subtotal on the far right-hand side for any vendors that we've written multiple checks to, just so you can easily reference that. So you're not combing through all of these small individual payments and wondering what's the total. So this, the board approves on a monthly basis. It's presented for the month in total. And we also include a detail of everything that's been charged to the credit cards. You will see in that check register report, the First National Bank of Omaha listed, but it's in a total amount. So we do provide that detail also to the board so that you can all see that. Okay, and I did want to cover the budget process itself. So we do zero-based budgeting. We scrap everything from year to year. We reevaluate everything. We build from the ground up. We don't just simply increase cost by a certain percentage and don't take time to think, do we still need this? Have there been changes? We do reevaluate everything. It's a very collaborative process. And this is a component of the annual area per capita grant application. And I wanted to include, just as an overview, you don't have to memorize this, but this was included, these graphs, in the memo that came with the budget to the board to approve, just showing the percentages of our revenues and expenditures are of our total budget. As you can see, the largest revenue that we receive is that area per capita grant application revenue, which Monica referred to in her part of the orientation. Makes up 66.44% of our total revenue for the year. Reimbursements are the group purchases that Layla, whom you met earlier, manages. So those directly offset on the expense side of things some of those library services expenses. So those are basically net zero between the two. They don't affect our bottom line. Fees for services and materials are made up of our e-read revenue from members, as well as our ILDS revenue, because we, as a part of providing the ILDS delivery service to Carly, it's a pass-through for Carly because they get a grant from the state library. We bill them and they pay us. So it's a pass-through to Carly, and we basically get a pass-through funds for that service. You'll see investment income has grown to be a little bit of a larger chunk since interest rates are running so high, which is great news for us as an organization, but maybe not great for anyone that's trying to get a loan right now. But it's great news for us as an organization. They are expected to start decreasing this next calendar year, so don't expect for that to continue into fiscal year 2026. But for now, we are in a good place. Rental income, which is kind of an odd item to be included on here, but I did want to mention, since it may raise a few eyebrows. We have a small piece of property that was willed to us, that was given to us by a lady who owned property next to our Coal Valley facility. It has a sign that is rented by the Lamar Company, a billboard on it. So we get a little bit of rental income from that. And other revenue is made up of a variety of things, mostly credit card rebates that we get back. So expenditures, you'll see largest expenditure, of course, we are a service organization, is personnel. It's always going to be personnel, and I'm sure at your libraries, it's the same story as well. Second largest expenditure are those library materials, which, as I said, are group purchases. That's the group purchase activity. And then third largest is contractual services. So this is partly the delivery outsourcing contractor that we contract outsource part of our delivery to, CTS, as well as some of those grants, the LSAP support, those cataloging grants for members to join LSAPs, and other grants that we give our members. So the budget is presented at the May board meeting each year and approved by the board. So moving into board fiscal oversight responsibilities. So I wanted to break these up into a monthly, annual, and ad hoc basis. So on a monthly basis, we do have authorized signers made up of all of the Rails board officers. So those are our authorized signers, along with our executive director, Monica Harris, and our associate executive director, Joe Philippek. So we do call on those board signers to sign any checks over $10,000. And the board is also responsible for reviewing and approving that monthly disbursement listing, which I think I've said about 3 or 4 times. But I am kind of hyper-focused on that. So I apologize. So annually, the board is responsible for reviewing and approving the budget. This is presented in May. It's a component of our area per capita grant application, which I think you've heard several times today as well. The board is also responsible for reviewing and accepting the audit. So we get both a financial audit and a single audit, because part of our area per capita grant revenues come from the federal government. And because of those federal funds that are flowing to us, we need to have a single audit to make sure that we are compliant with all of the requirements of getting federal funds. So it's basically checking off a bunch of boxes saying that we are compliant or that we're not, and then signing off on it. So much shorter than the financial audit, but very, very, very key to us keeping that portion of federal funds. The federal funds that we do get are allocated completely to the delivery department between salaries and also our delivery outsourcing contractor. So the audits are components of the annual report to the state library that is presented for board approval in September and submitted to the state library by the end of September. The board is also responsible for reviewing the investment portfolio, which I think I mentioned earlier too. It's presented in August and February for your approval. This is part of our fiscal accountability policy. And it's basically reviewing, making sure that it still meets Rails's needs, basically, and then it's performing well. So ad hoc responsibilities for the board include reviewing and selecting new depositories, just as the need arises. We have not selected depositories for approximately 2.5 years. I think the last time we did it was when PMA was selected and we chose to enter into those laddered CD investments. And the board is also responsible for developing and reviewing travel reimbursement policies and rates per that fiscal accountability policy. And this is at the suggestion of the staff and with our input into the process. So that was basically all that I had for everyone today. Does anyone have questions? You will have a chance to hear more from me. Yes, Emily.
What is ECC?
It's the Electronic Content Consortium. So it's an overdrive consortium of approximately 125 members.
Like Omni.
Right, but so is it across multiple consortia and that's why Rails manages it?
So it does cover across multiple consortiums. So I believe it has CCS members along with some SWAN members. If I'm remembering correctly, it's I can't remember if that is the one that's across the state or if it's Illinois Library Presents. It's basically across the state, but it does cover a couple of different areas. And they had approached us in the past if we could support them in some way because they really didn't have the infrastructure in place that they needed to do what needed to be done to make it work. And as a way to support more resource sharing in the state because we felt it was worthwhile, we said, well, it's a small amount of activity. We can take that on in addition to what we're already doing to support them. And we don't charge them back for any of our staff time, which is basically what it cost us.
What Omni needed help too? I don't know.
Can I just add like a little context to that? So this predates my time here a little bit, but that particular group had an emergency switch over in terms of management, where it was being managed by an outside program, where that suddenly became unavailable as an option to them. And so I think they approached Rails.
The reason why Omni, like, I was like in the meetings where Omni was created. Because we weren't allowed to be in the big overdrive. Like they cut off our ability to join one of these.
Well, an overdrive specifically limits very carefully the number of people that are allowed in each individual overdrive consortium. So those are sort of like outside the realm of what Rails can have influence on. We can
Understand that.
No, absolutely.
No, I feel like Omni is. It's not.
We can talk about what you're seeing and also get a little more context for the history in terms of what happened with that individual program. But I do know that that has been a
Rockford was in before they pulled out, and like now it's like a whole, anyway.
I don't remember.
Just to provide some context to Emily, just before you continue, I'm sorry. I was not directly involved in the discussion of all of that, because I was in a different role here at Rails at the time, so.
I'm not like pointing my finger or saying anything. I'm just.
Oh, no,
You
no,
know.
just prefacing my question with, I didn't have direct access to that conversation when it all happened, so.
Sure.
I may not have my facts totally.
Did you have something, Dan?
Yeah. ECClibraries.info. They have their own website. So you can find out who all the member libraries are. And there's some history in there too.
Second question. Sharon, what are your credentials? Are you an accountant?
Yes, I am. So I hold a bachelor's degree in accounting. And I also hold a master's degree in business administration. And I've been here for 12 and a half years. I started in March 2012. I was in the staff accountant role and I did the accounting for originally 2 of the 4 LSAPs. I know you're part of Prairie Cat.
Carolyn speaks very highly of you.
You're a very familiar name because I've seen your name across the board with Prairie Cat several times, and I believe we've been in a couple of meetings, if I remember right. So I did originally the accounting for Prairie Cat and RSA. And then when my counterpart left, I also took on the accounting for Magic and Swan. Magic is now out of business. They decided to close down operations. Their individual libraries either joined Swan or joined Carly, and one went independent, I believe, at least for a year's time, went independent. Swan took on their own accounting separately after they moved out of our facility. So now, after that happened and we had several retirements in the department through a competitive process, I was promoted to finance manager and then just recently to finance director. So I do not have a CPA, but I do have those degrees. Yes.
During the break, we were just talking about how helpful it is for me. I force my bank to have a quarterly meeting with me to talk about investment opportunities. I was just wondering if we do any of that at Rails.
We did reevaluate.
We employ a financial advisor.
So we did reevaluate a couple of years ago our investment options, and that's when we entered into those laddered investments. So we do have a couple of avenues for that. So when we designated PMA Financial Network as a depository, we do have an assigned investment advisor at PMA. Which we were going to get to present at our August meeting as a part of that investment portfolio review for the board. And I am in pretty constant talks with them as well. So we are constantly reevaluating when the investments came up, when they matured and then they came up for renewal again. We invested out a little bit longer, made that decision because interest rates are so high right now to lock them in a little bit longer and kind of maximize that interest. So we do actively reevaluate. I can't say that we have regular quarterly meetings like you do, but we do reevaluate.
But anyway, thank you for your answers.
You're welcome. I will say, our representative at Wintrust too actively reaches out and calls me on a regular basis.
That's amazing.
They are amazing. They have amazing customer service. I can't say enough good things, and I don't want to make this an ad for them because I shouldn't force them, but their customer
You're
service,
very happy.
yes.
Out of curiosity, what is Rails's, like from a cash flow perspective, what is the lowest cash flow, cash on hand time of year?
So in between, APC grant payments, so, it's switched over the years. So we know historically, the, Illinois Comptroller has had some cash flow issues.
So apologetic.
So historically, we have had some cash flow issues. Specifically, our lowest point was, during that budget impasse when we got down to that 9 months of coverage. So our lowest cash point during the year would be in between those APC grant payments. We went from getting a series of payments, so we would get, a portion from the general fund from the state, and then we would get a series of live and learn payments that were approximately 1.7 million throughout the year. And then we would get the federal portion later on in the year, which is approximately 1.9 million. So now, because the live and learn fund is gone, we get everything from the general fund. So we get a $9.9 million payment, just under $10 million. So we get a huge bump, and then we go several months without, so it gets eaten down between those months. We normally get that general fund payment early in the year. So we get a bump early, and then we gradually eat down. Early fiscal. So we eat it down, and then by May, we normally receive the federal portion. So that additional 1.9 million.
You referred to a budget impasse. Was that recent?
So it was during the time that Bruce Rauner was governor here in Illinois. And
So not a Rails budget problem.
Illinois.
Yes,
State
okay.
of Illinois.
it was affecting everyone.
Yes, I remember this.
I just wanted to add that the board reviewed and updated the fiscal accountability policy in the last year. And that's part of what Sharon is talking about, is there was an update to be able to update you on those portfolios a couple times a year. So as Sharon said, that was one of the changes that we wanted to make this year, was to get a little bit of outside, input in terms of how some of those things are handled too. So for those who've been on the board for some time, that'll be new this year for you, but that was just an addition that we wanted to make in addition to being able to offer those kind of portfolio reviews every single year.
I also want to mention Sharon has been amazing. I was at the finance committee for Prairie Cat, and Rails has been amazing with Elena too. Because how many support staff do you have under you?
I have 4 staff under me.
Oh, they've done great, and they've also suggested working with PMA in regards to Prairie Cat, and obviously admin council passed it. So thank you again for everything you do. Does anyone else have any?
Yeah, Sharon, I asked Sharon questions, email questions, like with bullet points on the bills every month, because I just want to know what they're for. And she doesn't just give me an answer, like she like types out all her answers in red right under my question, so they're easy to read, and they're like paragraphs long, and I never feel stupid. So I mean, she gets back to you within like a day or two. So it's really, she's a great resource. If you have any questions on anything in those bills, like the credit card bills, I always kind of look, and I wondered, like, why did Renee get so much in travel? Where does he live? And it's because
They waited a whole year.
he waited a whole year to put in his reimbursement. But, I thought maybe he lived on Mars, but whatever. But stuff like that, so she's real easy to get a hold of and get answers from, so.
I think you can also see the level of detail that Sharon puts into the work that she does, which I think is hopefully helpful on a transparency level. But one of the reasons that we want to start the year for everybody in July with this kind of review of the financials is just because it is a really important part of your role. And so our hope is that Sharon's expertise and the understanding that comes from here allows you to really understand all of the pieces that go into the Rails budget. But as many have said here, if anyone has questions, if you are reading through this and there's just things you don't understand, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, to reach out to Sharon. We will definitely make sure that we're able to help you understand those pieces. And I want to thank Sharon for, of course, starting us off on the right foot as we get into this. Every single month, you will get a service of the month report that comes from someone in the Rails staff. So they'll tell you in detail about some of these things that affect the Rails service. But we try to start out with finance just to make sure that we have that piece well covered for our board. Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate it.
All right, next up is the Rails board member reports. Now it's the time, this is the fun part, that board members can share any news from their library or area.
Hi, this is Gwen. I have something to share.
Hey, Gwen.
Hi, so I'd like to share that my library, Northern Illinois University, was awarded one of the OER grants from the state library, and we're very excited, and people are already getting to work with faculty from a number of the colleges on our campus to develop some new open educational resources. So thank you to the state library for that.
Congratulations.
I'll share that I'm a school librarian, high school librarian, and our back to school day is we'll have our students back on Monday, August 12th. And it's coming up, and it's always like it fulfills me because we're so busy in the library for like the first month and a half of school, just crazy busy with classes and book checkout and research projects. And I think to myself, this is exactly how I want it to be, even though it's busy and crazy. It is. And I have my first, I am a new board member on the ISLE board, Association of Illinois School Library Educators. And I have my first meeting to take my oath of office, as you guys did, coming up too. So I'm super glad to be serving on two boards and love the idea that these two organizations, along with other great Illinois library organizations, were acknowledged for such good intergovernment collaboration. So if there's any other way that I can help keep that going, know that I'm all over that. I'm very thrilled to be back to school with new interim superintendents that eases a hard issue that our district went through. I'm also the president of our union, our teachers union. And I have a smile on my face going back to school with new leadership. Thank you for hearing me and for thinking of me in our busy, crazy time.
And recently, I heard from Cindy Robinson from ILA, and well, it's been a chase since 2019 when I suggested that I wanted to have a presentation about retirees forum. And those of you who are on ILA would ask for your support, because since the beginning of this month, Cindy has had published in some of the newsletters that we're attempting to get your opinions about how you feel about having a retirees forum. And I think it would be it was my belief that we really need the support of each other. And just because you cut ties with your library, we'd like to do something a little bit more to add mentorship, what you're doing for community support, what you're doing, personally, if you're spending time at your library and helping out. And there are many different ways. It would be an opportunity to share ideas, meet up with old colleagues, old friends, because believe me, over the years, a lot of buddies that I'd like to, catch up with again. So when you see the survey, I hope that you would acknowledge it and send in your support. When I heard last from Cindy, when she was in San Diego, she said they're in the process of creating a petition. So hopefully, fingers crossed that at the ILA meeting or conference in October, it'll be discussed a little more. I hope to have some kind of a forum poster session or something, so I can explain to those of you who don't, who aren't close to retirement, but this is extended to anyone that's considering it within like 10 years or so.
About, it was in the
Yes.
IOA, the petition is ready, so you can fill it
Yes.
out now.
I filled it out and said it, and on roll here, Jeannie Hamilton, our library director at Bloomington, said, Diane, I've got something to give you to honk our horn about at Bloomington, and this is just some fun facts. In the month of June 2024, since we've been somewhat not as chaotic as we were when we were going through our expansion renovation, big day at the library, the most popular day is Tuesday. And the most popular time, any time of the month, is between 1 and 2 p.m. is the most popular time. You see more strollers and walkers and kids and just all types of people coming. And on June 19th was the most popular day that we've ever had since we've gone through the renovations. It was 1,450 people total that day. And so that was outstanding. Almost every day in June, we saw 100+ people every hour. And we were really happy to see that since we were open in June. And on June 11th, from 11 to 12 was the most popular hour of the month of June. 218 people came through the doors at that specific time. So that was outstanding. Thank you for listening to me honk our horn. We're having our ribbon cutting too on August 1st.
I would love to just share while we have a captive audience. There are 3 big Lacrona events coming up. We have an August 1st one for our promotions, outreach, and marketing section. We have another one about management from our circulation services section. And then on Wednesday, and I'm telling you the exact right day, Wednesday, August 14th, my section, the supervisors, administrators, and managers section is doing our 2nd annual networking unconference. We're very lucky to be co-sponsored this year by Dominican University, so it will be on campus there. I'm very just excited to see there are still some spots available. So if your library is a member, remember you can come for free. It's, we made sure there's coffee all day this time. And if it's a half day, so it's definitely not the whole day for you because it's in the middle of the week. But so expect to see, we're really hoping to pull in a few different people from Dominican to participate in those sessions along with us as well. So we're inviting faculty, students, and staff this year as well.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. The agenda for our next month, which is our meeting Friday, August 23rd, will include the LSEP support overview and broadband activity with Ann Slaughter and Agencies of Impact report with Janet Durecki. That's all. Thank you for your attendance. And I adjourn this meeting at 2:23. Emily, we're good? All right, that's awesome. Thank you so much.